It seems like every day that Jordan Peterson's claim that everyone is religious gets reaffirmed. And what better example of this than two very hip and progressive YouTube atheists condemning, or dare I say, excommunicating, Richard Dawkins for his controversial opinions on transgender issues. Let's jump right in.
It is a very odd phenomenon because I'm used to continua wherever I look. I mean, there's tall versus short, fat versus thin, old versus young. All these things are a smooth continuum. The one thing that isn't is sex. I mean, sex really is binary. There's no question about it. You're either male or female, and it's absolutely clear. You can do it on gamete size, you can do it on chromosomes. And so it is, to me, as a biologist, distinctly weird that people can simply declare, I am a woman, though I have a penis. That seems to me to be a strange distortion of language, because language is useful as something to express your thoughts clearly.
Forrest, my dude, what do you make of what was said?
My dude!
It strikes me as odd for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's explaining the reality of biology. There are continua everywhere. There's really, like, there's nothing that you can put into a solid box. Everything is fuzzy. Everything is gray. And he's like, except for this one thing, though. This one thing it has to be this way. And he's backing that up using the categories that we created.
Using the categories that we've created. This is the first indication of the religious mind virus that has affected these so-called atheists. Anytime you hear someone referring to the categories that we've created, how male and female are socially constructed categories, that's why sex is assigned at birth, not observed at birth, because we assigned a category based on the construction of language. That's an indication that this person may or may not be a strong adherent to the new religion called postmodernism.
You need to understand postmodernism because that's what you're up against, and you're up against it far more than you know or think.
The central argument that was made by Foucault and postmodernists was that there is no natural essence to anything, that everything is a social construct.
There's an intellectual movement in the social sciences that says that everything is a social construct, and male and female is a social construct. There's no real validity to to difference between male and female. It's all a social construct.
And in this case, male and female are categories that are used to marginalize transgender people or whatever, because that's the goal of cis white men in power.
And that's just not good enough. And then he continues by saying language is really important for expressing yourself clearly. Yes, I agree. That's why this nuance here is so important, because it's very difficult to express yourself clearly when you only have these two very narrow parochial boxes to work with. You don't get the kind of diversity and the nuance and the interesting nature of language out of that. So, like, he's literally describing how biology works and how language works and how important they are, and then refusing to use that same framework for this one thing. And that's so weird.
To say that male and female are separate categories and are real categories, and they're not assigned, they're observed, that's ignoring nuance. Interesting. Renegade science pastor, I believe it is.
So, like, if someone dismisses the entire transgender movement based on what a fringe of them think about sex, and yes, there are some people that have those views, it's obvious to me that you can't be taking the view seriously. It would be equivalent to just saying, look, Christianity shouldn't be taken seriously at all because, and then just emphasizing and focusing on entirely young earth creationists. It's just, even if it is the case that the fringe views got it wrong, like, you've got to deal with the mainframe, and he doesn't seem to have any inclination, or there's just nothing there where he's dealing with gender as a separated concept. He's just
First off, this distinction between gender and sex is accepted by even the equivalent of Satan to these people, Jordan Peterson, who's a transphobic, racist, religious person.
And I think there is a use for the word gender, by the way, which we could get to if someone would like to ask that question. No, I'm serious about that.
So the separation of sex and gender is not the issue at hand. The interesting thing that people who say that sex is a social construct is a fringe view, not really, not when you have mainstream trans activists going on mainstream media to proclaim that they are literally the opposite sex, not gender.
So the first is the very language of you were born and I'm not biological somehow, like I don't think I'm a cyborg. So like this idea that like, oh, you're not a biological woman. Well, I am a woman, that's a fact. I am female, so all my identity records, my racing license, my medical records all say female, right? And I'm pretty sure I'm made of biological stuff, so I'm a biological female as well.
And then you add on top of this, you know, the Chicago Public Schools educating teachers that sex is a social construct for the reasons that renegade science pastor brought up in the beginning. All categories categories are categories that we've created. And when we create a category, that means it's a social construct, technically. This is exactly what caused, for those who are familiar, Vosh to make his famous or infamous aqua statement.
First of all, I don't think biological sex is defined in terms of chromosomes. But let's just use the example of water. Maybe we could agree that water is H2O. That was true even before we knew about chemistry. Back when Aristotle thought water was just an element. Nevertheless, it was H2O. True. I'm sorry?
This isn't true.
That water has not always been H2O?
Yeah. All you have to do is cross the Mexican border. And over there, it's aqua. That's H2O, not water.
Aqua means water. Aqua is water.
It's a different term.
Actually, it's agua. It's not aqua, right?
And we're referring to terms and definitions here.
No, I'm referring to water, the stuff that fills lakes and rivers.
The stuff that fills
about the word water.
Many things fill lakes and rivers.
Okay.
If everything is a social construct, then there are no facts. Only socially constructed terms and definitions that masquerade as facts.
Aqua means water. Aqua is water.
It's a different term.
Actually, it's agua. It's not aqua, right?
And we're referring to terms and definitions here.
And he's backing that up using the categories that we created.
Right? And I'm pretty sure I made up biological stuff. So I'm a biological female as well.
He's criticizing the fact that we are talking about gender, and also he is exclusively talking about sex. And like the difference between those two things, again, I can't stress this enough. It's not a new development. It's been
And it has nothing to do with the conversation here. He's just making a point so he can sound like he's making a point to address Richard Dawkins, even though that has nothing to do with the point that Dawkins is making. Richard Dawkins is criticizing the fact that someone can declare they're a female and then they're entitled to female legal protections or being housed in female prisons or playing female sports.
When it comes to philosophy, Richard's never been particularly good. Maybe this is just what he's like when he's outside of what he's good at. I don't know.
This next part I realized was just a whole big setup for a Dave Chappelle joke, funnily enough.
What it seems like to me as a professional content creator, it sounds like somebody who is on their own podcast, speaking to their own base, who they already knows agrees with them. And so he doesn't have to put in the hard work of making a really compelling argument or putting in a lot of thought. He's just reaffirming the people who are already listening to him by saying it in such a simplistic way that he thinks about it in his own way. It's just like that. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like somebody who's very comfortable in their space, talking about another space through their own language of being an influencer, of being a celebrity. That's what it sounds like to me.
Who's that? That's you.
Moving on, this is the religious dogma and gaslighting that starts to seep in. So let's watch.
The other things he said in that just made me raise an eyebrow is that he started talking about having a penis. And I'm like, but he's mentioned before that sex is going to come down to, the way that he sees it, gamete type and chromosomes. Why is he saying a penis? That seems to only achieve appealing to people's intuitions. Because it's not like if you've got a unique...
Oh my God, this is your brain on pure logic and nerd shit, just pure autism mainlined, okay? Saying that a male is someone who has a penis, you're just appealing to people's intuitions. What? This is what I'm talking about. This is gaslighting religious dogma right here.
Because it's not like if you've got a eunuch in front of him, Richard's going to go, ooh, I don't know who that is. I don't know if that's a man or a woman. Yeah. Now it's tricky.
Oh my God. This is my point. You have to be completely dedicated to your religious cause to not see how blind and stupid the point of, oh, you have a definition of a word? Oh, I found an exception, therefore the entire definition is useless. Well, a male is someone who has a penis. Well, but what if someone's penis gets cut off? Oh, okay, I guess males don't exist. Oh, well, a human is someone who has a heart and two arms and two legs. Oh, but the Siamese twins, well, there's two people in one body, they have one heart, so really they only have half a heart. It's like, okay, so therefore they're no humans. And it's not nearly as embarrassing as the next thing that's about to be said.
It's hard because, like, as someone who is staunchly feminist myself, I see the attempt to try to boil women down to their organs or their chromosomes or their ability to reproduce as grossly anti-feminist.
Yeah.
It's like calling a woman just a thing that gives birth.
Or a birthing person? Yes, as a radical progressive feminist myself, I don't call women women, I call them birthing people, because apparently that's the progressive thing. And if you're like Anna Kasparian and you're against that, well, you're a bigot. So reducing women to just their genitals or the reproductive utility is staunchly anti-feminist, but then if you're against being called birthing person, a bigot. So that's the advantage of having a religious worldview. It's not based on truth and correspondence to reality. It's based on adherence to an ideal, to a utopia, to categoryless, completely fluid, no restrictions based on us, human self-identity as the ultimate arbiter of reality, because it's the ultimate form of self-empowerment and the rejection of the reality that brings about such pain, and the religion is such a delivery from said pain. I am also renegade science preacher.
You notice whenever we talk about, trans people as an issue, and whenever we debate trans rights, it almost inevitably, like 90% of the time, 90+% of the time, we are only talking about trans women. Always. Yep. And for me, I see that just because this is the opportunity for mixing homophobia and sexism into the diarrhea martini called transphobia. And that's what I see.
Reminder, Hail Mary full of grace, transphobia is evil. It's also funny because the people who would be critical of trans women don't actually believe they're women. So it's not misogyny. So he's just throwing an opportunity to say, oh, I hate misogyny too, by the way, and homophobia. And I really hate transphobia because my Lord and Savior, postmodernism.
This crazy thing called intersectionality that's a bit more interesting than just crosswalks and road signs. It's actually this whole diverse field of thought about how these different...
Pseudoscience. And intersectionality also based off postmodernism.
Here's the paper that introduced intersectionality. And the writer clearly says, intersectionality is an attempt to fuse postmodernism with contemporary politics.
I think the way to just picking on trans women like that is a way to avoid any kind of deeper thought and just appeal to hate.
I broadly agree. I really do. I think that's correct. I'm with you. I'm incredulous. I'm just like, what is going on with Richard with his content lately?
That's precisely the issue. And it's it's not who he's been for the past 15, 20 years. When he's going out and debating people about religion or debating people about evolution, I never saw a clip where he was straw-manning somebody. If he seriously wants to say that trans people don't fit reality or don't fit biology or don't fit or whatever like that, at least have the freaking courtesy and the decency to go out and learn what they actually are saying, and not just get on this pity party here of saying, oh, well, in our academic institutions, we can no longer be hateful and bigoted. I'm sorry, academia should be more free, not less. It should be more interested in exploring new ideologies, not less. It should be more open to new evidence and new ways of thinking, not less.
It is the absolute upside down. We want academia to be more free. Don't you know that not being allowed to speak bigotry is making it more free? It's like, no. Censorship makes you more free by making you free from opinions you don't want to hear. Again, hallmark of a religion committed to something that's obviously not true on its face. Calling people bigoted and appealing to hate for saying, no, sex is pretty binary, and I'm not going to just agree that someone who says they're female is female. Well, that's hateful and bigoted. And to get rid of that hate and bigotry is to increase freedom. To deny people to say that is to increase freedom. Religion.
That is such a incredible point, honestly, because that's something that trans activists are very vocal about. I didn't decide that I'm a woman. I discovered that I am. I didn't just wake up one day and decide to be a man and stop wearing clothes. I realized that I am a man. I came to terms with the fact that I am a man. And it's why, people talk about,
what is a man and woman? Is it not a category we've created? How does one discover that all along you've been a category that we created? You've internalized a social concept? Well, then why do you need gender reassignment surgery to do it? This is the concept of a soul, literally in atheist form.
They don't want to use the word born male or born female. They prefer the term assigned male or female. They thought I was this. Turns out I was that.
Right. The doctor saw my penis and assumed I was male. The bigot. But as a true believer, I know that I am truly on the inside a female, even though male and female don't mean anything because they're a socially constructed category. So what does it mean? Gender identity is a soul. That's what that is. To say, I on the inside really am this. There's as much empirical, logical, rational evidence for the validity and existence of gender identity as there is for the existence and validity of a soul. And yet, it is the atheists who claim they don't believe in this magic nonsense. They sure act like it.
And that's such an important distinction to make. And so that's a phenomenal point. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because that's exactly how it should be seen. This person was always a man. Their phenotype disagreed. The doctor disagreed. Their parents might not have understood. They were always a man. They learned about it later. and then they're going to tell the world about it. And that's just so much more realistic and so much more poetic. Again,
definitely poetic. Don't know about realistic.
If everybody was saying the things that Dawkins was saying here, I would also disagree with them. But nobody's saying those things.
All right.
Anyway, well, this has been fun. Once again, remember, everyone's religious, especially YouTube atheists. And if anyone disagrees with me, hey, I'm happy to talk about it, okay? Because clearly we need some de-radicalization and some de-evangelization as well. So anyway, good luck. Godspeed. Peace out.